I make the world graphical.
I add value through my products.
I am an animator.
I am a filmmaker. I develop trends.
I transform designs to reality.
I create environments.
I translate stories to furniture.
I design experiences.
I'm an immersive media designer.
I design mobility.
This is not only a design institute.
This is a design lab.
Join us in our design movement.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to the series of webinars and workshops by MIT Institute of Design. Since last 5 years, as a part of Design Connect program, we are interacting with design aspirants through various seminars, webinars, and workshops where experts share their experiences with the young budding designers. This year, we have moved one step ahead by keeping these sessions more interactive and engaging students to get hands-on experience on various topics of design. So today's Design Connect, Humanizing Experience, Design for Digital and Beyond, a virtual workshop by Professor Shrikant Ekbote. So I feel honored to welcome and introduce Professor Shrikant Ekbote. So Professor Shrikant sir, he is a design practitioner turned academician with an industry experience of 22 years. He is an alumnus from IDC School of Design at IIT Mumbai and has a diverse experience of working in multiple areas like manufacturing, telecom, and banking with organizations like Tech Mahindra, Pfizer, and Barclays. He is currently working as a professor with the User Experience Design Department of MIT Institute of Design, MIT ADT University, Pune. In his previous stint as UX practitioner, he has been instrumental in setting up UX design teams in India for global organizations and setting up design practices for greater collaboration for delivering UX design services from India to global clients. He has also been associated with the startups ecosystem as a design mentor through multiple accelerator and open innovation programs. Currently, he is pursuing his doctoral research with Department of Design, IIT Guwahati. His research interest includes UX design practice in India with focus on research practice gap and situational learning of UX designers in practice. So now I request Professor Shrikant Ekbote sir to take over the further proceedings of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavika, for that wonderful introduction. And welcome everyone for this workshop. As you have heard from Bhavika, the title of this workshop is Humanizing Experience, Digital Design and Beyond. So I'm really excited to conduct this workshop because it's my passion to interact with budding designers, learning designers like you. So this is a very interesting topic, very close to my heart. So without any further delay, I once again welcome you all for this workshop and let's get started. Okay, so before we get started, some ground rules which I would like to clarify, because this workshop was supposed to be happening in an offline mode, but given the pandemic situation that all of us are in, we had kind of forced to make this offline. right? So there are certain ground rules. Some of you might already be aware of, but it's like good to have like these kind of basic rules set up. So the first thing is keep your cameras on because this is, interactive workshop. So it's important to see each other as much as possible, to kind of look at each other and see because the interaction is more important, right? Second thing is this is a workshop and not a webinar, correct? So there'll be lots of interesting small activity that I have planned for you. So let's have a notepad and a pen ready with you, yeah? Because you'll be kind of need to write something, do some sort of brainstorming, and there's lots of interesting stuff. So those of you already having notepad and pen, it's okay, but some of you, those of you who don't have it handy, please get it, yeah? And third thing is be responsive because it's very important. It's a workshop. So that unless you are responsive, there won't be, it's very important that you react to what I'm saying, because then it helps me make sense of things, whether you're understanding or not, because the objective is not to just deliver a lecture, but to have a dialogue, correct? And there are lots of interesting topics that we'll be talking about. And if you feel like there are certain things that you may not be following, certain terms that you may not follow. So, in Zoom, you can raise your hand. Feel free to interrupt. So this is, I'm just saying it again, that this is not a webinar. So it's not like I'm talking and you're listening. I'm expecting a lot of interaction in this workshop, right? So with these ground rules set up, let's get started. Okay, so let's go back in the history a bit, right? So what you see is a time machine. So let me take you back a bit, like few years, 50 years or 60 years probably. And why it is important to go back a bit, because if you understand where we have come from, it will be helpful to understand where we are heading, because UX design is a very emerging discipline. It's a new discipline. And today we are going to understand how is this design discipline shaping up. And some of you who are likely to be future UX practitioners, future UX designers. So my intent today is basically give you a very good orientation of how is this discipline emerging, how is it discipline moving forward, and give you a good understanding of if you decide to get into this profession, what kind of interesting challenges you're likely to solve, right? So let's go back in the history a bit of basically computing. So if you see, you may not be able to read everything on the slide and not required to read. This slide basically shows you an evolution of how the chip has evolved, right? And how the computers are growing, right? So right from 1960s or 50s, suddenly it has picked up, right? And we'll see computers getting more powerful, mobile computers getting more powerful and all that stuff, right? This is an interesting view of how Apple products have evolved over a period of time, right? So right from 1984, when they launched their first Mac, to 2014, when the first Apple Watch was launched, right? So you can see some very interesting, and those of you who are interested, there are very interesting stories about how Steve Jobs and other people went about designing MacBook, how Apple as a company kind of evolved, right? And how they're innovating constantly, right? And it is important to take this into perspective because UX design as a field is an outcome of all of these technical innovations those were happening. So this is exactly the reason I'm giving you this context that, okay, you need to have an understanding of where it started, where we are right now and where it is going, right? Correct. So important part here is how computing has evolved over a period of time, right? Because if you see in 70s, it was completely a mainframe computer. And I don't know whether you guys may not even have heard of mainframe computing, right? Because this is way before you guys were born. There was no graphical interface. So from that era, we are into like 2022, where it is an era of what is called as ubiquitous computing, correct? So computer is no more, centralized into a machine. Practically everything around us has a computer, a small computer embedded in it. And it is not just a siloed computer. It is like a network which is connected. So all the devices are talking to each other. All the devices are talking to each other. They are able to communicate with each other, and computing is completely distributed. So from a green screen mainframe computer, in a span of, let's say, 50 odd years, we are into era of ubiquitous computing. And we need to look at the field of UX design in the context of how this field of computing is evolving, right? Right. And it is not just, it is not just for technical reason it has evolved, because it has inherently affected every aspect of our life, right? And everything around us, like physical objects, it has affected our physical environment, and it has also affected our mental environment, right? Because we don't just say, you'll see so many issues coming up these days because of excessive use of digital technology, the kind of psychological issues people have. So the digital technology has not just affected the physical environment, but it has also affected our mental environment in a big way, right? And UX designers have to have an understanding of how digital technology is affecting people, right? And we'll see later in the presentation how it is affected and what is your role as a UX designer, right? Now, let's look at some of the latest happenings about how digital technology has been advancing globally and locally. And I had made this distinction purposely, globally and locally, because the way digital technology is accepted, it is the way it is happening in, let's say, San Francisco Bay Area, would be very different from the way it is happening in India. And we'll take a look at both the contexts. So first, let's take a look at what's really happening in the Bay Area.
The Tesla Model 3 is an amazing looking car from the outside, which is great for everyone else, but as an owner, I have to look at the interior all the time. So following on from the Model 3 review, I thought it was only fair to show you around what the interior of Model 3 is like. So here's a deep dive into just that with a Tesla Model 3 interior review. Surely this can't be the Model 3 interior. I mean, as a kid, I loved playing with all the buttons, but I can only find two. And these are these scrolly little wheel things with no writing on them, so I'm not quite sure what they do. And that's the first thing that strikes you when you get in a Tesla Model 3, is the interior is sparse. The design aim was clean and simple. Now, I've heard cars described like that before, but this one really is. You've just got a steering wheel, a touch screen that's like a 15-inch iPad, and then a dashboard. But there's nothing on the dashboard. There's no air vents that you can see. There's no headlight buttons. There's no fan controls, nothing. If simple and clean was their design goal, the interior designers can tick that as mission accomplished. Before I come on to the few buttons the Tesla Model 3 interior does have, let's look at the centerpiece of this interior design, and that's the touchscreen. And I'm pleased to say the touchscreen works as well as top brand phones. It scrolls smoothly, it's very responsive, you've got familiar gestures to control the map, and then it's intuitive to use because they've used obvious icons along the bottom. So for example, if I want the aircon on, I'll just touch the fan. To the right of the map screen, you've got your car status screen, and this changes depending on what the car's doing. So for example, when you're parked, you get options to open the boot and the front or the charge port. When you're driving along, it displays it like a normal instrument panel, including rendering all your surroundings. To the left of the Model 3 status area, you've got this display space here. Generally, I have it set as maps. Then I'm using it to navigate wherever I want to go. Or you can have a look at the cameras if you want to see what's going on behind you, or change some of the car settings as well as you're going along if you don't want the lights on automatic. The only things you can't do while you're going along is watch Netflix, YouTube, or start browsing the web or anything like that. So you can't do any of that yet. Fingers crossed though, with full self-driving, that's going to be something we can do in the future. So we can just be cruising down on the motorway, watching Netflix while the car drives us wherever we're going.
Right. So you just saw an interior of a Tesla Model 3, right? And as you can see in the video, there's nothing there, right, on the dashboard. It's just an ad file. So one quick question to you. If you imagine yourself to be driving in such car and interacting to this iPad-like interface, what do you think? Is it good for you? Do you think it is distracting, or just few thoughts on whether if you have to drive this kind of car, what would be your driving experience?
Hi, my name is Harshita. So I think if I was driving, it would be hard at first because it's clearly on an iPad and not like a normal dashboard. But by the time I get used to it, I think it'll be easy to go with.
Okay, so you think there will be a learning part will be a little more there, okay?
Yes, sir. Considering we are so used to using buttons and dials, it'll be a little hard to get used to the touch screen. It'll take time, of course, but eventually we'll get used to it.
Correct. Yeah, but there's an interesting point here, what you said. There's something called as a muscle memory, right? And we type with muscle memories, we find things with muscle memory, and we also have a muscle memory when we interact with various car components. So do you think this whole, let's say, if you have to give an indicator or anything, you have certain muscle memory which is developed. And I myself have tried operating the console without looking at it, and I find it very difficult. Maybe because of my age, but usually by default I'll end up looking at the dashboard and then interacting. So I thought it's just my view on this, but I think the certain tactile aspect would have been interesting, right? Whether you don't have to look at, just by the touch of a hand, this control is there, correct? So it's an interesting dilemma, right? When you're designing, I think what I'm pointing to is, when you're designing something, right, there's always these kind of dilemmas you have to solve, whether you want to kind of design for muscle memory for tactile interfaces, or you want to kind of make it everything digital, right? Because digital looks cool, but it has its inherent disadvantages that everything is concentrated there, and it's an interesting design opportunity. Like, for example, how do you integrate physical, tactile with digital, right? Correct. So I just wanted to get your thought process going about, how interesting designs can happen, how digital innovation is happening. Okay, so with that, let's take a look at another video, which is also from a San Francisco Bay Area. It's about a driverless car. So let's take a look at this video, and then we'll have a quick discussion.
Oh, there it is.
Does it have a safety driver?
No.
Are you sure?
How about you look? Look for yourself.
Okay. Oh my gosh! Okay. It's passing us.
I told you.
We have to stop it now.
I don't wait for 6 minutes.
Okay. All right. We have to go catch it up. Hey, can you open my door?
Afternoon, this car is all yours with no one up front.
Oh my gosh, this is so cool. Okay. Hey, hold on, I gotta put on my seatbelt and put the camera down.
They recommend you use the phone to do the honors.
So you don't touch anything?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay. Okay. Start the ride. And where are we going?
Michael's.
We're going to Michael's.
To Michael's.
Okay.
Please make sure your seatbelt is fastened.
It's my kind of trip.
Questions, press the help button to speak with a rider support agent.
Oh my gosh. I can't believe this. Look at that.
This is my 25th ride. It never gets old.
It's like there's a ghosty driving the car.
Correct.
Oh my goodness.
Usually it's not that slow.
It's being pretty sit.
Yeah, there you go.
It's being careful.
There you go. And now on the map screen, we can.
That's really awesome. Okay, so here's the back seat. the little baby seat in case you have a baby. Yeah. Okay, so our ride is 14 minutes long.
$6.
We're going to Michael's.
At Michael's. Please keep your seatbelt fastened until we reach your destination. Remember to take all your belongings.
This time it's at the destination, not the your drop-off point.
Well, you know, Michael's is a destination location, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, what do you know?
Keep your arms, hands, feet, head, legs, flip-flops inside the vehicle at all times.
All right, then we're gonna wipe down the seats and the screens when we leave.
Okay. There's these signature Clorox wipes and some hand sanitizer. Here we are at Michael's. Well, that was pretty sweet. I would say very smooth. Minus that one little had to go around the trailer thing. Didn't jerk at all.
Yeah.
Really? Oh, we're going to pick a parking space.
Well.
Oh, no, we're not.
Nah.
Because then we'd have to go in reverse. Oh, you're going to block somebody.
Yeah, well, let's wipe it fast.
Thank you, Waymo.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Please check your surroundings before exiting the vehicle.
Okay, give me
Remember to close the doors after you exit.
Okay. Okay. I shut the door. All right. Bye-bye, Waymo car. That was so much fun. Okay. You having fun? I already wiped that one.
Oh, very nice.
Okay.
Ta-da.
Bye.
Okay, great. Okay, so what did you observe in this video?
That the car didn't have a driver and they had to communicate with the car through an app.
Yeah, but how was the reaction? It was the young boy who was taking her mom for the first time in a driverless car, right? So did you note her reactions?
She was really excited.
Yeah, she was excited. Okay. And another thing you must have observed, so they were treating the car like a person, right? So they actually said bye-bye Waymo at the end, as if they're seeing off somebody, right, as a person. So that's like they're looking at it as like so much personalized, and they have like, and being an American mom living in US, they have a very welcoming attitude to new technology, and that's how she's ready to try out new things and stuff like that. Now that brings us to a very interesting question, right? Let's say if you compare a scenario in India, right? Do you think this kind of car would work in Indian context?
I don't think it would work if you implemented it right now, but it could work if there are more steps taken, like maybe clearer roads or in like better maps.
The programming for the AI to navigate around Indian traffic would be immense. That's all I'm going to say.
Correct. So the car needs to have a lot more intelligence than what it has right now. And it brings up another question, right? In a country like India, should these kind of cars be there? Right? It's more of like when you have such an immense human intelligence available, right? Should you waste time and money and energy in bringing up such cars? Because for that artificial intelligence to match the human intelligence, right, it's going to, so much processing is going to require, and it will never be able to match the human intelligence, right? So this brings a little philosophical point, right? When you have, in a country like India, when you have so much of human intelligence, what kind of technology should be deployed in the Indian context? Because technology is not neutral. You always have a social economic context within which you deploy the technology, correct? And as a UX designer, you cannot just think of it only from a technology perspective. That, okay, I have this cool technology, I have this car and it's moving on the road, right? because the technology has to meaningfully integrate into people's lives. And that is exactly the job of UX designers. So the point here is you need to not only look at individual or just technological aspect, but also important to look at the social and economic aspects of the technology when a certain technology is being deployed in a certain socio-economic context, right? Because there could be a question of vandalism, right? We have seen, let's say, how initially when Ola and Uber was launched, there was an outbreak from existing drivers, right? So just imagine these kind of social issues arising when these kind of technology is launched in a country like India or any other country, for example, other than US, right? So that's an important consideration when you are trying to design for technology, right? And these are all design decisions. You have to take, it is not only just interaction, but these are all important design decisions that has to be taken into consideration when you deploy any technology, right? Now let's look at, since we are anyway talking about India, let's look at what is happening in India, in our own country, as far as digital scenario is concerned, right? So let's look at the third video.
India is the second largest market in the world for digital consumers and growing fast. It had 560 million internet subscribers in 2018, twice as many as in 2014. Only China has more. Falling costs have spurred digital adoption. Data costs have dropped by more than 95% since 2013. Government programs have helped too. 1.2 billion Indians have biometric IDs. Many are linked to digital bank accounts. Businesses are also going digital, but adoption is uneven. Every sector has leaders, but also many that are behind. Highly digitized sectors like IT and business process management could double their GDP contribution by 2025. Growth could be even higher for newly digitizing sectors like agriculture, healthcare, retail, logistics, and data-driven lending and insurance. Digital could create up to 65 million new jobs by 2025. But 40 to 45 million others will need to be retrained. Government will need to invest in new infrastructure. Businesses will need to nurture new talent. Workers will need to learn new skills. It's a challenge, but if all stakeholders adapt and gear up, digital can be one of the most inclusive drivers of India's future growth and prosperity.
Okay, so this was still a 2018 video. Probably the stats have considerably changed over 2-3 years. But the point here is that's the kind of potential digital technology offers in an Indian context. And as we see in that video, potentially every sector is being affected by digital. Let it be healthcare, let it be banking and finance, let it be education, e-governance, payments, banking and payment we talked about. And so there's an immense opportunity within India itself because all of these are first-time users. They are getting onboarded. So there are so many, interesting digital innovations happening in India. So let's quickly look at some of the few examples. Can we have the presentation? Yeah. Okay. So we looked at how the insurance industry is getting transformed because of digital, right? So this is a company called QClaim. They're using computer vision AI for processing the insurance, right? Now there's a company called V-Card. It is like a first downloadable mobile credit card with UPI. Now UPI is a very unique infrastructure in India, and a lot of companies are building on top of that. So this company has thought, why credit card has to be always physical and you have to carry it? Why can't I have my credit card on mobile? So this company has launched a mobile first credit card. Now blockchain is coming up. Now this company is simplifying a blockchain enabled automation platform for financial institutions, right? This is like a very innovative solution which is solving a problem which is very specific to India, which is a last mile reach. So the problem that they have identified that a lot of places in India where there may not be a connectivity, they may not be connected to internet, they may not have a data connectivity, but how you can enable banking services to these last mile customers, right? And that's what this solution does, called UAPay. So they have called as, without internet banking. Now, can you imagine that how a person in the rural area without mobile connectivity can do an internet banking, but they have made it possible, correct? So this is just to give you an overview of, if you sum up whatever we have seen, how it is happening in the West. We have looked at all the high-tech gadgets, we looked at autonomous cars, we looked at Teslas of the world, we looked at what Apple is doing, how Apple Watch is being, newer form, new features been introduced, what is like top line of the tech happening, and what's really happening in India, right? And since you are, into this part of the world, it's important that you consider how is technology deployed in the current context that we are into, right? So taking that thread forward, I want you to kind of just spend 5 minutes and just write down from your own perspective, right? What aspect of your daily life has been affected by digital technology, right? And you can just type in there as you get to know, and just kind of quick recap of, what are things that you think digital has affected your everyday life. Now, from your own perspective, you don't have to think of anybody else. Yeah. Okay, so Aniruddha is saying it's online payments in UPI. Now I hardly carry my wallet. Fantastic. Yeah, same here. I also, and I rather encourage digital payment. So it's good to have. UPI is a great thing in India. Yeah, Harshita is saying worldwide communication. Absolutely. We are able to talk to anybody, anywhere in the world, just so that with a WhatsApp call, things have become so easy. Yeah, e-learning, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure you guys also would be, enrolled into a lot of courses. Now, everybody knows Baiju's story, how they have transformed the education space. A lot of players, and in fact, the pandemic has actually accelerated this whole process of digitization of education, right? In fact, the way we work in offices has been transformed completely, right? Yeah, so Praneeth is saying it's e-commerce, yes. Yeah, even I have been little low adopted to, e-commerce, but now I've started using it. Yeah. Yeah, Aniruddha is saying the expanded reach of small brands across the country and even globally through an e-commerce. Correct, absolutely true. So small brands have found a very good reach through, yeah. Okay, Soumya Saha is saying no need to leave home. We can get anything delivered to our doorstep. Absolutely. And this has been a boon in a pandemic where you don't have to, you're supposed not to travel anywhere, right? Okay. Yeah, banking we have looked at how UPI has transformed. Yeah, correct. Yeah, so essentially, as you can see, okay, Radhika is saying it has made designers to communicate their designs by using apps which are handy. Okay, yeah. Yeah, food, grocery delivery. Yeah, we looked at that, but yeah, that is a big market. Harshita is saying being able to search for any information. So basically an online library. Absolutely. And there's an important point there. Good that you use the word information and not use the knowledge, because there is an abundance of information right now. We are into information explosion, but how that information gets converted into knowledge is a challenge, and we have to kind of look into it more seriously. So good that you mentioned the word information. Okay, so there's some more replies, so let's take that. Freelance, work from home, absolutely. Yeah, gig economy, we are into gig economy. And when you guys will get into workforce, probably 4 or 5 years down the line, the gig economy would have been picked up so much, right? That people are working from home, people are working from co-working spaces. The whole concept of work has transformed, right? You don't have to be physically at anywhere. You don't have to travel if you have since pandemic has started so many things, and the new hybrid way of working, and every company in the world is working towards how do we make this effective, this hybrid way of working. So where we work, where we collaborate through tools like Figma, we can now work with global teams sitting at our own homes. Absolutely true, correct? So all of these, and these tools are becoming very powerful, right? So since you mentioned Figma, it's a collaboration, it's a, you can design, there's no need for handoff, and you can immediately share your designs with the developers wherever they are in the world, right? You can access real-time information status for any service or any place. Yes, and this has been a big advantage, especially for railway travelers, right? Because I remember, knowing the status of an exact status of a train was a big problem, but railway has been quick enough to adapt to these and give you a real-time status where exactly your train is, if it is running late, if it is on time and stuff like that. Yeah, so I think this is good. So essentially, as you can see, it is kind of impacted practically every aspect of our life. Yeah, so maybe barring eating, or you cannot have a digital food, maybe till, but yeah, delivery is digitized, but at least you have to eat, to survive. So probably that's still a very physical activity, right? Okay, now we looked at every one of you have like a smartphone, right? And there are number of advantages of using a smartphone, right? But what I want to do now, I want you to do now, is look at some of the problems associated with use of mobile smartphones. Yeah. So each one of you has a smartphone, right? And we know all the services that we talked about, all the apps that we talked about, they cannot be accessed or are very easily accessed with a mobile. It has a tremendous computing power. You can do a lot of things on the go. So we all know advantages, right? What I want you to concentrate on, what are the problems associated with the mobile phone right now? Yeah. Okay. So GI is saying there's a less data privacy. Yeah. Bad effects on health. Yeah, like sitting for a long time, irritation in eyes. Yeah. So yeah, health problems. Addiction. Aishna is saying timeless scrolling on internet. Yeah. Harshita is saying negative influence to physical social interaction. Yeah. Prathamesh is saying it can badly affect the mental health. Yeah, so mental health is an issue. Yeah, so I'm saying instead of thinking of using our brain, we use Google. Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen, there's a very interesting documentary by the name, Is Google Making Us Stupid? So please watch that. Yeah. Okay, so Rajit is saying disturbance in circadian rhythm. Yeah. made us lazy. Rowan is saying yes. B, okay. Loss of physical relationship, yeah. GI saying smartphone knows everything about us, like our location, our contacts, and it could be used badly. Okay. Again, it is related to the privacy issue that we discussed in the beginning. Yeah. And by the way, it's not the smartphone, huh? It's actually a Google services. So Google knows everything about you, not the smartphone. Smartphone is just a device. Okay. It's actually Google who is capturing your data. Okay, so Anirudh is saying companies taking advantage of our user psychology through habit forming product systems. Yeah. So there's this concept of dark patterns in user experience design, right? So these patterns are exactly that. They kind of take care of care, take control of your cognition and try to, force you to that. Yeah. So Aishna is saying exposure to excessive load of information. Yeah. So information overload. Surya Jyoti is saying fake news circulation that goes, yeah. Radhika is saying video games and gaming sections is an addiction part, which changes our personality or which might change our personality. So excessive gaming is a problem. Yeah. Okay, so I think we have some very good collection of challenges associated with mobile. Oh, looks like there's someone more. I'll just take that. So yes, she's saying it provides instant gratification. Yeah, that's an important issue. Correct. So yeah, Rosie Sahar is saying it is making us dependent. Okay. Okay, so I'm just taking a note of it side by side. Okay, so I mean, this is a very interesting list, by the way. Yeah, and looks like you guys really have a good grasp on, the challenges associated with UX design, and this is kind of the mindset that is really required, to get into a design school, which I'm so glad that you already have. So let me kind of take a quick recap of whatever things that you have discussed, right? So we talked about data privacy, all the big companies like primarily Google, Amazon, Facebook, they knowing exactly about you, everything about you. There's no, what you're doing, what's your location, what are you sharing and everything, right? We talked about health issues, right? It leads to a sedentary lifestyle. The physical activities are reducing and it is having a psychological effect, right? You're getting addicted to social media, right? We talked about instant gratification that you get on social media, and you kind of start looking at that instant gratification in real life also. And somebody doesn't provide you, if you don't get that instant gratification, you feel bad. And you get into, some really bad mood. And, if you don't get the expected likes to your post, Twitter feeds and stuff like that, right? We talked about, less use of brain, excessive dependency on information technology, right? Timeless scrolling, information overload, fake news. So all of these are big challenges associated with the way we consume technology, the way we use mobile phone. Now, linking this to design, do you think this is a design problem? The way the internet is designed, the way the mobile is designed, these things are inherently built into it, right? And maybe why people, when they created these technologies, they haven't have thought of that this would emerge in this direction. It is sometimes it's done intentionally, as somebody said, that they want the complete control of your mind, you know, when you're playing a game or when you're hooked into social media, right? So that many a times it is done purposely, but at times it could be like unintended consequence also, right? And then you need to be cognizant in terms of if it is unintended cognizant, this is a design problem, and you need to have a design solution to solve this problem, right? And this is exactly the kind of problem the UX designers typically work with, right? And it's important that you understand that. And you know, these are if you classify all of these problems, you know, some of the problems are related to your cognition, right? How you process information. Some of the problems are related to your social behavior, your interaction with your family, right? So let's do a quick you know, exercise. So let's say you pick up one problem, and let's say if you have to solve that problem, which is, you know, very close to your heart, and you have complete freedom to you know, rethink of mobile from the current form. You don't have to stick to the current form or the app or those rectangular piece that you have. Let's say if you could imagine mobile in a very different way, which will take care of one of the issues, right, that you mentioned, and with something which is close to your heart, what could that be, right? So let's probably 10 minutes. So maybe I'll just give you some time, because it's not, you may not be able to, you know, have an impromptu answer. You'll just need to think through it probably, and don't think through too much, because we are not looking at a complete you know, finished design solution, but just to capture, okay, what are those initial thoughts? We have to rethink of mobile in a new form, which will solve one of the problems that you mentioned. So it will not solve everything, but if you have to pick up one problem from what you have mentioned, and just spend 10-15 minutes just scribbling about or writing down about it, and we'll just reconnect. Yeah. So before you get started, any doubts, any questions? Okay, looks like the problem is clear. So let's catch up after 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay, so hope you had like a quick chance to brainstorm individually, because brainstorming is supposed to be a collective activity, but yeah, let's individually. So would anyone like to share what they thought of?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, do you know about the ATM machines? Like, if the person is standing in front of it, only he will be able to see it, not the other persons around it. So what he can do is add that type of screen on the phone, and it would be visible at an angle. So it will help you keep your posture straight, and other people around you won't be able to see what you are doing in your phone.
Okay. Yeah, so that technology, I believe, is already there, right? Or you're proposing something new, Jia?
I actually didn't knew that technology was there.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, the idea is good. Yeah, that you won't be able to see it. Yeah, okay. So Venkatesh, make mobile more smart is a little generic statement. It will be good if you can elaborate. What do you mean by more smart? Okay, Nitin is saying replace current mobile device with a smartwatch. Okay, just to have a phone call. Okay, so detach all of this, right? All the nonsense of social media and continuous scrolling that you do, and just focus on calls, basic functions, right?
Hello, can you hear me, sir? Venkatesh here.
Yeah, Venkatesh.
Yeah, when I say make it smart, right? The first thing is the biggest concern now is security. If you look at the security, right, if you can embed this personal information into a separate part in the mobile, right, where it cannot be easily accessed by any of the apps. Okay, that's one of the design thing which can be done. The second thing is, I really don't call this phone as a smartphone. Now, when I mean smartphone, it looks like a smartphone, but it never understands the personality who is using the phone.
Okay.
Right. If we can make something where it can understand my personality and behave accordingly, right, then it becomes a smartphone.
Correct.
Right. For now, yes, for what reasons, it is called a smartphone, I really don't know. Right. If for example, if my phone understand my personality, right, and it is smart enough, if I'm looking at the screen for more than 10 minutes, you should come back and tell me, boss, you don't have, you just have to go and take a nap.
Right.
Break whatever I'm currently doing it. Right. Then
So
if I have to make it smart
and you're person aware and context aware computing.
Yes, and then the other thing what I notice is suppose a small kid is using the phone, right? And suppose I really don't know what is the context the child is using for.
Correct.
Right, the smartphone should be enough to tell that okay, this guy is it should go and ping the parent telling that yeah, your son has been using this phone for last half an hour, 45 minutes. You need intervention, right?
Correct.
Something like that. The phones can be made really smart based on the personality of the person using it. Now, then we can call it as more of a smartphone and is an extension of your personality, and it's trying to help you out in whatever you're doing it.
Correct.
Right. This is what I mean. Making it more smart.
Correct. Absolutely. And you just gave an example of a child using it, but look at even elderly people using mobile, right?
Yeah, just an example.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, for an elderly also, the elderly also, the smartphone should come back and tell me, boss, no, you're not supposed to, look at this for such a long time.
Correct.
And shut off by itself for 15 minutes, go blank.
Correct.
So at least it'll break it'll break my sequence of looking at the thing. Then no way, and I must be able to go back and start the phone or whatever it is, something like that.
Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting suggestion. Yeah. Thanks, Venkatesh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
thank you.
Kavil is saying holographic phone from watch. Oh, okay. So it's basically holographic projections coming up from watch, and then you can interact with those projections. So there's no phone as such, but okay. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. So Soumya is saying we can make the mobile into a small pets AI, which can communicate with us and interact with us to help into reducing screen time. Okay, so basically more effective use of artificial intelligence is what we're looking at. Okay. Yeah, so I think these are very interesting ideas, right? And once you look at it as a design problem, you kind of solutions and start thinking from that direction, right? The kind of solutions that you would come up would be very interesting. And that's precisely the job of a UX designer, is to look at the technology from a human perspective, right? How when and how it is affecting the human being, right? That's the essence of being a UX designer, right? So it's good that you are thinking of it from a human perspective and not just taking the technology for granted, right? And that's the essence of being a UX designer, right? Yeah, so good that, you've already started, the UX designer's thought process, right? And I have put this UX word into bracket because, there could be some design problems and probably larger design problems, need not necessarily be a UX design problem, but it requires a larger definition of design, not just, in a very myopic sense of user interaction or user interface, but it is larger a design problem. And what is that larger design problem is something, or what is that larger definition of design is something that we will look into the second half of this workshop, right? Now, let's look at, there are multiple terms. Can we have the PPT? Yeah, thank you. So you must have heard a lot of terms for UX design, right? A commonly used term is user experience design, more common term is UI UX design. So it's a very common term these days. When I started, there was nothing called UI UX. It was either called usability engineering, and there's a customer experience design, right? So they call it CX design. From UX now it is moving on to CX. There is a more scientific term called human computer interaction design, right? HCID. So there are multiple terms which are used to denote the same discipline with a different flavor. So people coming from a computer science background will call it a human computer interaction design. People from design schools coming and talking about probably just interaction design, right? And there is probably more design flavor to this whole. There are, if you study this topic into computer science, there would be more of a technical side of it, right? If you versus you study this topic in a design school, there'll be more designerly orientation to the whole curriculum, right? So it is known by different terms, but it means the same thing. Now, this term user experience design, does anyone know who coined this term for the first time?
Don Norman.
Don Norman, absolutely correct. So in around 1995, he was at Apple, and we looked at how Apple products evolved, right? And that is the time he coined this term called user experience design. So let's hear from him. This is a very latest video from him. What he has to say, how the definition of user experience has changed. So let's look at that video.
Once upon a time, a very long time ago, I was at Apple. And you know, we said the experience of using these computers is weak. The experience when you first discover it, when you see it in the store, when you buy it, when you can't fit it into the car, it's in this great big box, it doesn't fit into the car. And when you finally do get it home, opening the box up and, it looks scary. I don't know if I dare put this computer together. All of that is user experience. It's everything that touches upon your experience with the product, and it may not even be near the product. It may be when you're telling somebody else about it. That's what we meant when we devised the term user experience and set up what we called the User Experience Architect's Office at Apple to try to enhance things. Now, Apple was already pretty good, so we were starting with a good product, making it even better. Today, that term has been horribly misused. It's used by people to say, I'm a user experience designer. I design websites or I design apps. And they have no clues to what they're doing. And they think the experience is that simple device, the website or the app or who knows what. No, it's everything. It's the way you experience the world. It's the way you experience your life. It's the way you experience the service. Or, an app or a computer system, but it's a system, it's everything. Got it?
Okay, so that was the original intent when he coined the term user experience. And, as he rightly said, anything to do with app, the current trend is, call it everything is user experience, but there is a much larger meaning to it. Now, it will take time for industry to adjust to the new term because it's a new discipline, it's a new area, and things are evolving, still evolving. There is a, still there's some sort of uniformity across the globe which is coming into the field. But till the time, what I want you to kind of take away is the original meaning of the term user experience was far broader. And now it is kind of reduced to UI UX. Right? Okay, so let's look at this term user experience in little depth, right? Essentially, whenever we interact with any digital objects, right? We interact with all our senses, right? We see it, we touch it, we hear it, we smell it. I don't know, we might be testing it. I have not come across anything to do with test as far as digital, but yeah, most of the senses that we interact with, right? And our experience is an outcome of the interaction with the digital technology, right? So your interaction basically defines the experience, and that's exactly the term that is used called human-computer interaction design. And there's a debate in terms of, can you design somebody's experience? Correct? So there are two schools of thoughts. So one school of thought says that you really can't design somebody's experience, right? It's an outcome, right? Maybe you might have created a good experience, but that person, if it is not in a correct state to appreciate that, still he or she is going to have a bad experience. So you really can't design somebody's experience. So the term that is used is design for experience, correct? So there's a fine differentiation there, correct? And you can design the way a person or a user interacts with technology, right? And the better term that is used is human-computer interaction design, correct? And as I said, user experience is an outcome, yeah, of this interaction, yeah. Now, there are two terms here. One is user experience, and second term is design, correct? Now we looked at what is user experience. It is, coming out of your interaction with the technology. Now let's try to go a little deeper into the term design, correct? So can you quickly tell me what are the different contexts or different ways wherein we use the word design? You can just type in the chat window. Whenever we say design, what are the things that come to your mind? And it has to be real quick. I mean, there's no need to kind of think big deal. Okay, Praneeth is saying UI. Okay, so UI design. Okay. Architecture. Okay. Kavil is saying product design, yeah, website or logo design, industrial design, correct. Making things work, absolutely correct. Okay. Fashion design, absolutely true. Communication design, correct. Problem solving, yeah. Design thinking, interior design, yeah, cool. I think this is really, you're on the right track. So these are all the things that we associate. Okay, human designated design, visual design, yeah, function of everything. Nitin is saying conversational UI, conversation design, yeah. Absolutely right. So all these answers are right. So what you said is correct. So we use this term design in a multiple ways in multiple contexts, right? If you talk to an engineering student, they will also say, or she will also say, I'm also designing, right? But, they're doing engineering design, correct? And those of you who are probably engineering student might interpret the word design in a very engineering sense, right? We talked about graphic design, logo designing, that's also design, right? People are trying to communicate, right? We talked about communication design, communicating your idea through your design, right? We talked about architecture, right? If you talk to an architect, what do you design? They'll say, okay, we are designing spaces, right? We are designing interiors, right? We talked about fashion design, correct? That's also design. You're creating an identity. You're trying to make a statement through the new fashion that you do. You all know product design, industrial design. From a concept, you make product, right? We know transportation design, right? Where people are working with new modes of transportation, coming up with new prototypes, working on the interiors. We looked at how not just exterior, but interior is also an important part of the whole thing, correct? We talked about HCI or UX design, multiple form factors from desktop to mobile to smartwatches. There's a voice interaction design. So you don't have to touch anything. You just give a command and you talk to a computer, right? So there's a voice interaction design. I don't think anybody has mentioned about service design, but that's a new area where this is all, if you listen to the Don Norman video, he talked about everything that happens, right? When you interact with the services. So the way we use the term user interface, there's something called a service interface. So let's say when you book an through Oyo or Airbnb, you start your journey with the app, you get a confirmation, you go to that place, you find a room, there is someone there to receive at your room, your reservation is there, you stay there, you come back, and the whole thing happens. Same thing happens when you book a car, right? There is a whole system which is involved. So when you book an Ola or Uber, there are so many things happening in the background, finding a right car, finding your destination, communicating with the car driver coming to pick you up, you going to the destination, you making payment, and the whole thing is completed. So this is a new area called service design. It's just coming up, and it is exactly when you take into consideration the entire system, not one particular aspect of that system, right? And then you say, okay, how is value created at every touch point? So if you look at it from a service design perspective, they're called it service touch point where the value is created. And it is called as service interfaces. And it is more and more becoming more important for UX designer to be aware of this thing, because it's not only in the app, the customer experience is across all the touch points that the customer is interacting, right? So that's a new area emerging. Now let's say, we have a smart city project, right? Now, whenever you're doing, let's say, what is under smart city happening, right? Probably you must have seen some bus stops getting Wi-Fi enabled, or some random screens being installed somewhere on the roads, right? With some videos going on. So just think of it from a design perspective. Now, if digital technology has to be employed into making a city smart, correct? What would that be? And that's a design problem, correct? Now, how can citizen services be made more, services be made more citizen-centric using digital technology? That's a design problem, correct? So in the COVID, when you're communicating, how do you communicate with citizens? How do you take control of the situation? How do you give alerts to the system? And there are so many things, like we are just talking about one healthcare system, but it could be so many things. And when you look at it as a system perspective, more in a systemic manner, sorry, not systematic manner, we look at it as a system and multiple interacting component within the system, correct? And then how do you apply design approaches while designing these kind of services or these kind of systems? So relating between systems thinking and design is one big area that is coming up, right? So you need to be aware of that. Yeah, so essentially, if you look at it, the field of design is kind of evolving over a period of time. So it's not a static field, right? Like any other field, even if you look at engineering, new inventions happen, things evolve. So even the field of design is also evolving. And it is, if you can see, and it is in sync with the technology that is evolving at that point in time. So there's an interesting concept called 4 orders of design by an American researcher by the name Richard Buchanan. So he says graphic design is a very basic thing, right from cave painting to, printing technologies. And, the graphics was the most fundamental part of the design abilities of human beings, right? And then as the industrial revolution happened, manufacturing, technology evolved, you got industrial design. You started designing products, correct? Because that was the technology of the time. With the emergence of electronics and digital, you started interacting with the digital technology. You started interacting with electronic objects, right? And then you move to a next layer. And one important thing here is as you move to the next layer, the earlier layer doesn't go away. So it is like building on top of that, right? So certain principles, let's say certain visual design principles are constant throughout, right? When we talk about, the color theory, the balance, the compositions, they are still the same, even if you are designing the whole concept of aesthetics remains the same. But as the technology evolved, you kind of need to reinterpret certain things, right? Now look at this from a digital technology perspective, right? Now let's say we are from a digital, we are getting into artificial intelligence, into machine learning. Now, how these concepts translate into this new technology, or how is the meaning of designing changing in the new context? And that's a very interesting area to work on, right?
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one doubt?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
So actually, I'm not so clear about this service design, difference between the service design and the systemic design. So could you please explain?
So let me, I mean, it's a big topic, but let me try and answer that in a very short. System design is basically, I mean, there is a whole concept of systems thinking, which is, which was part of design some time ago, but now in between they got separated. But essentially you look at anything as a system rather than any individual component. So in a way, service design is systemic in nature because you are looking at multiple interacting parts. And one of the important, a foundation of systemic design is a sum is always greater than, the whole is always greater than sum of its parts, right? So the system, I mean, the service is also in a way a system because you're looking at multiple interacting components. So they are not working in isolation. You have to look at it in relation to relation with each other. But when we talk about a core system, system design, right? You tend to look at the complete system by which the product is, let's say, coming into picture, or a social system for that matter. So let's say when we talk about sustainability, right? You take into consideration from where the product starts, it acquires that form, the consumer buying it, and the end of life cycle of that product, correct? And when you take this entire value chain into consideration, you are taking a more systemic view. And especially this particular, concept is very useful when you're doing with, working basically with social innovation. Because when you're working with community, the interaction with that is a very important aspect. So, I mean, yeah, in nutshell, I can say a service design is, there is a relationship between system design, but system design as a topic is very broad. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Actually, recently I came across something called strategic design. So I was a little bit confused, like how it is different from the system design, service design, and all those things.
Yeah.
So
the foundation is same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of,
Yeah, I guess a lot of systems make it. I mean, a lot of services make one system. So correct. I can take it.
So like, you can look at the service probably as a miniature version of a larger system, maybe. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, one more doubt.
Uh-huh.
Sir, with reference to your PPT that you have shown, the graphic design part, is it inferior from the system design, like in aspect of technology?
No. As I said, these are the different layers that build on top of that. Correct? So certain basic stuff remains very core. So let's say when we move from graphic to product, right? It doesn't mean that graphic design is going away. Correct? For example, let's say even in the context of artificial intelligence, right? So let's say, how do you make something visible, right? Let's say data visualization. How do you tell a story through data? Now, this is an AI system that you're working on, but for that to happen, you have to have your visual design principles, your graphic design principles very sound, so that you can apply that into when you're doing a data visualization, correct? Similarly, there is a whole concept of aesthetics, for example. It kind of, the whole point I'm trying to say is it is kind of acquiring a new meaning, right? And that's what we need to be cognizant as, probably you need to be cognizant as future design professionals, right? because so it is no way that this is going away and that is coming. It is kind of reinterpreted into new context. And that new context is something you need to be aware of. Let's say we talk about product, right? Now whole concept of, composition, texture, color theory, they are interpreted in the product context, correct? If you look at all the famous products from Jeter Rams, they follow all those principles. Now, how do you take those principles into digital? Still, I mean, all those principles are still applicable in digital, correct? So it is like, it is a new interpretation. So you look at it as it's like interpreting in the newer context. Does that answer your query?
Yeah, sir, totally.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, so Niruddha is saying strategic design is more into business needs service design. So it's trying, okay, so yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. So let's get back to where we were. Okay, so the important part, particularly in the context of digital design, is we need to understand a slight difference between how physical products are different than digital products, right? And how the definition of design kind of changes here, right? Now, as we know, you can touch and feel the physical product. Okay. There are limited set of fixed predefined functions a physical object or a physical product can do throughout its lifetime. Let's look at a motorbike, right? So once you buy a motorbike or once you design a motorbike, it remains the motorbike throughout its lifetime till you kind of abandon it, or any other physical object, right? So there is a fixed relationship between form and function, correct? The form always, I mean, form follows function is a philosophy you must have already heard, but there's a fixed relationship throughout the life of that product, right? Now, when it comes to digital product, basically digital technology is invisible and intangible. You really can't touch a data, right? And that becomes little problematic, right? Because when you can't see things, what are you interacting with, right? Now, there are ways the technology, invisible technology, can be made visible. Maybe laptop screen or mobile screen that we use is just one of the forms the digital technology can be made visible, right? And it opens up a lot of different new directions of looking at digital technology. When you say that, okay, I'm really looking at one particular way of visualizing how the digital technology has been made visible, right? And the most important part in terms of digital technology is there is no fixed relationship between form and function. The function can be anything, the form can be anything, and you can deploy any functionality into any form, right? You can make a call through your watch, you can make a call through your phone, mobile phone, you can make a call through your desktop phone, or you can just have any other intelligent object through which you can enable it to kind of make a phone call. So this is an important distinction between physical products and digital products, that there is no fixed relationship between form and function, correct? And another very important part is digital technology is active, or it is generative. It's not static, right? And with the AI, it acquires an intelligence over a period of time. So digital products are acquiring intelligence, right? And that's a big difference. So I think two things we need to kind of make into consideration, that, okay, separation of form and function. Any form can have any function in case of digital, and digital technology is not static. It is emerging, it is evolving, it is active, right? It's generative and it's intelligence, okay? And we've seen with the emergence of IoT, right? Internet of Things, physical products are now becoming intelligent, correct? Because since there is no direct relationship between form and function, you can deploy digital technology into any form, any product form, any physical form, and it can make that particular product more intelligent, correct? Okay, so let's do another small activity, right? Let's take a physical object that you like, whatever object that you like, maybe probably a bicycle or a table lamp or a coffee mug, or pick anything of your choice. And just imagine if you want to make that object intelligent, what kind of intelligence you would like it to have, right? So just 5 minutes, quick 5 minutes exercise. Just pick up one object. You don't have to pick up too many objects, just one object. And if you have to make it intelligent, what kind of intelligence it could have, or you want it to have. Yeah. Okay. So I think there's some very good responses coming up. So we'll just go one by one for benefit for everyone. Yeah. So Rosie Sahar, she's saying a pen which follows my instruction maybe. So maybe she's looking at an intelligent pen, right? Gautam is saying a pen which tells me the amount of ink present through the digital display. Yeah. The number of words written and the time elapsed. Yeah. Interesting idea. So Nisar Muhammad is saying bed to healthy smart diagnostic tool which can monitor health parameters. Yeah. Okay. Gia is saying emotional recognition on my coffee mug. Wow. So coffee mug that understands your emotions. Wow. Interesting idea. Shivam is saying a self-driving bicycle with the technology of object detection, transformation. You can drive it if you want, and it can be self-driven. Exactly. Okay. So probably, yeah, this could be a useful device in a country like India, by the way. Yeah, very good. And there are some very interesting experiments which are currently happening in the space, but yeah, it's a very good idea. So Gia is saying a blanket that folds itself. Yeah. This is a very super idea. I think it deserves the best idea prize because I face that problem myself every day morning to fold the blanket. Yeah, so I really look forward to this kind of technology coming in reality. So Varun is saying a chair to adopt to a shape of a person. Yeah, okay, interesting. A dynamic chair. Gautam is saying a table lamp that switches between light colors as per the weather outside and the lighting inside the room. Wow, it's a very practical idea, by the way. And there are already mood changing lights are available, but yeah. Okay. So now Gia is again saying a water bottle that could fill water on its own. Okay, so you probably have a robot attached to a water bottle which knows where the dispenser is and kind of operates as, yeah. But yeah, so it's just your wish list, right? So anything you can wish for, right? Okay, so water bottle that analyzes and displays water quality. Yeah, so this is an important thing. Quality of the water that displays. Okay. So Radhika is saying, with reference to the feature of a spider, 8-leg, yeah, I would like to develop a bed which enables me to get my things handy within seconds. Okay, so you're lying on the bed, and I can imagine myself, lying on the bed, and you kind of crawl to certain areas without getting up, get your things, come back, go to any part. So probably that's what you're imagining, right? Interesting. Okay, so Rashmi is saying a coffee mug with, I don't know, probably there's something wrong there. The coffee mug with the ingredients can prepare hot, cold coffee itself. Okay, yeah. So you're trying to save on the trouble of making the coffee. Kavil is saying mask as well as all the wearing nowadays. I wish it had an ability to detect people around, as in when there are less people around, it eases the suction of the mask, and when there are more people, it tightens and giving protection. Yeah, interesting. So a mask that adjusts itself depends on surroundings. Okay, so what is that? Praneeth is saying, I would like my bike to be smartened with overtake assistance. Okay, auto headlights, security alerts in case of tampering, theft, smart start, auto ride mode selection, and provides a service issues, navigation assistant with Bluetooth connect options, etc. So looks like you are Praneeth, look like a bike lover. So you want your bike to be really an intelligent one.
Absolutely, right? Sir.
Yeah, I can see that from your comment. Yeah. So Harshita is saying a coffee mug that can identify the drink is inside. So there are a lot of coffee lovers in the audience. Huh? Everybody's thinking of a coffee mug. Okay, that can identify what drink is inside and also remind me to drink more water and not too much coffee. Okay, so the mug wants to control that. Okay, don't have a coffee, have water. Okay, So mug that causes you a behavioral change. It can also have a thermal protection to keep the temperature of the drink, and also a button that allows me to mug to close to prevent the drink from spilling or pouring out. Yeah, interesting. Yeah. So Prathamesh is saying a device which will identify my mood, mood sensing device. Wonderful. By listening to me, looking at my behavior, and can play music accordingly to make it happier. Yeah. So I don't know, probably Amazon Prime Music does it to an extent. So because I'm seeing, I'm subscribed to Amazon Music, and it has acquired such sort of intelligence over a period of time. It kind of knows where am I, what is my list, and kind of acquire some sort of intelligence over a period of time. But probably you're trying to go one step ahead, and it understands your mood also, like what kind of mood it is and what you would like to listen. Aniruddha is saying a smart table lamp for long distance relationship that can light up according to your loved ones' lives and positions. Yeah, interesting idea. Very interesting idea. So Rohan is saying the emotion detection app for a device which can help introvert or socially awkward people or blind people about the emotions of people in their surrounding. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting observation, Rohan, and very different kind of observations you have, I must say, because how can a technology help an introvert person socialize better? I think it's a very great concept there. So Rosie Sahar is saying a cupboard arranges or organizes things on its own. Wow, I so relate to this problem. Yeah, so I'm also looking forward to this kind of technology, like the blanket folding earlier idea, right? So these are the two things I'm really looking forward to. Okay, Saurajati is saying smart clothes with dynamically adjust stitching patterns to fit the user. No need of tailoring. Yeah, I mean, the idea is good. Probably if you look at our traditional clothes, they were, this technology was built in. So you just, pull the thread and it kind of adjusts to your size. So if you look at our traditional clothes, that design element was already there. Updating Alexa by getting her to work with household chores. Okay. Yeah. So Radhika is saying that. Okay. So I think really interesting ideas, very interesting ideas. And I think you already have started thinking about how can the digital experience be humanized better, how it can help, our everyday life, how it can meaningfully integrate into our everyday life, right? So let's look at certain more technical aspects, like when you want to be a UX designer, or what is it that you're looking for, or what kind of mindset you need to have. And you've already shown that you already have the kind of responses that you guys are giving, the way you're responding. I think you already are kind of all geared up to deal with this digital technology, right? So one of the basic things that you should have as a UX designer is deep understanding of people and their unmet needs, right? So this unmet needs is an important word here, correct? Because how come you think of a new idea? It's basically by identifying an unmet need. And this unmet need, if you go and ask the users, they will not be able to tell you, correct? And there's a famous, saying by Ford when he invented IC engine. So he said, if I would have gone and asked people what you need in the age of a horse cart, they would have said, I just need a faster horses, correct? Because people cannot conceptualize that there could be something called an IC engine. There could be a car which runs on its own, right? So this, one of the core job of you as a UX designer is your ability to look at understanding or observing the unmet needs of the users, correct? Basically, and you need to be very empathetic to humans. So you need to have a deep empathy for human beings. And empathy is something that it's very difficult to acquire in a very short span. It is like something that you acquire over a period of time. It is, how your value system grows. But essentially, basic empathy to human beings is one of the most important aspects for being a UX designer. And third important aspect is, ability to ask right questions. And why this is important is because, there are technology people, there are business people, and they're all set to deploy as much possible technology as possible, correct? Because that is commercially beneficial. Now, your job as a UX designer is to ask the right questions. Is this relevant in the context? Correct? Is this making sense? Is this ethical? Correct? Is it causing any harm to somebody? Now, these are all the questions that a designer needs to ask to a technologist or to business. Correct? And as an individual ability, you need to have a balance of creative and analytical thinking. Correct? And why this is required? Because UX is a mix of these two abilities. So you need to have a very good understanding of, let's say, cognitive psychology, which is a very technical scientific topic. At the same time, you need to be aware of design methodology, which is a very creative topic. Correct? How do you come up with new ideas? How do you come up? Is there a methodology to do that? So it's a very good balance of, both sides of your brain, so to say, the left and right. Like you need to have a good ability of creative and analytical thinking. I'm already mentioned in the first point about observation skills, and which is very difficult to achieve because, there are a lot of theories, about how we, lose our observation skills because we quickly develop patterns in our mind, and the moment the patterns are developed, we kind of lose the sight, and and that's exactly the reason we are able to, work out in everyday life. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for us to kind of live. But when the patterns are developed in our mind, we kind of lose our ability to look at certain interesting things in our surroundings, which are the seeds of innovation. So keeping those observation skills alive is the most important aspect of being a user experience designer. Now, as a user experience designer, you need to understand people at various levels, correct? So first we talked about, a basic level, which is an individual cognitive level. I, as a person, I have this mind, I have my senses, and I, through senses and process it, right? And that's like a cognitive process that every human being has. So that's a very individual cognitive processes that we go through, right? So that's something that you must understand as a UX designer, because it's one of the foundational principle of UX design, right? How do your cognitive processes work, right? Now there's a little outer layer, which is called a social and cultural layer. So you can look at technology not only as an individual context, but more in the context of social and cultural. Correct? Because we say when we are talking about driverless car, correct? So we are thinking, okay, what kind of social issues are going to cause it? Or there are, there are a lot of social aspect about who has access to technology, right? Who's technology benefiting, right? Is it inclusive in nature, right? Inclusive of all the different elements in the society. Is it culturally relevant? Or because the aim of the technology is not to just make human robots, right? So there is this whole concept of cultural and social behaviors that comes into picture when you look at digital technology, when you are deploying a digital technology into a specific social context. And beyond that, there is a global context. So you will see any activity that you do, let's say a global issues like, for example, climate change, right? So everything when you design, let's say we're talking about sustainability. So you have to take into consideration the larger picture. And when in some time back, we had a discussion about systems thinking and system design. So when you take a systemic view, you don't take like an individual view. When you take a systemic view, you look at all of these aspects and how they're interacting with each other, and then try to come up with a design solution, right? So you need to be aware of all of these multiple layers while designing for digital technology. And as it is famously said, design is not how it looks, but design is how it works. Correct? Because that's a very encompassing, a very broad but very useful definition, and that brings us because design is not an individual activity. It is these days it's a team play, and that's why you need to, as a UX designer, you need to collaborate with business and technology. correct? So as a UX designer, you need to have a conceptual understanding of technology. That doesn't mean that you have to sit and code, but you need to have a very good understanding of what is this technology doing. Let's say if tomorrow you have to work on a blockchain application, right? Or an IoT product. Now you need to have a very clear understanding of what is blockchain. How does it work? What is IoT? What is artificial intelligence? How does machine learning works? You need to able to talk that language. You need to understand what data scientist does, or understand their language, collaborate with them, right? So that's one of the basic part, right? And also another understanding you need to have is about the business domain, correct? Because these technologies would be applied in a specific business domain. So the examples that we saw, like in fintech, right? Now you're not a fintech expert. So you need to understand, okay, how does banking and finance work? Let's say if you're working on a blockchain application, a user experience design of a blockchain application into corporate banking, right? So you need to understand how banking works. You need to know how blockchain works, and then you will be able to propose a very meaningful solution, which will be, beneficial to the users and stuff like that. So domain understanding, whichever domain you'll be working is another important aspect. So what you can see here, there are 3 parts to it. And when all the 3 parts collaborate very well, you have that sweet spot in the middle where a really innovative product, comes to existence. Yeah, so we talked about, the collaborative process. So we just quickly take a look at how it happens. So basically you observe something, or you have a new idea, correct? Then you think of some solution to solve the problem, correct? Then you need to kind of represent that idea in some form. It could be a sketch, it could be a digital prototype, it could be a physical prototype. It's not a product, it's a prototype, correct? And now somebody needs to kind of realize that into real life. That's where technology collaboration comes into picture, because you need to think of a suitable technology to realize this solution. But the important part here is you're starting with users and then looking at technology. So it's a user first approach. So designers typically take a user first approach. There is also a technology first approach where oh, this is a technology, now where do I go and what problem do I solve with it? So that's also one starting point. But typically when you take a design driven approach, you basically start with end users. What is the problem and what is the relevant technology in the context, right? Now then you create a functional prototype to create, and test with actually a limited set of users. Now commercially it has to be made available for people to use. That's where business people come into picture, because this making it commercially available needs funding, needs investment, and that's where you need to collaborate with business people, correct? Now people start using the product or the service, right? It's launched, and then there are some intended or unintended consequences of the new design, correct? So the way we looked at the mobile problem, right? The mobile originally was not created for that, but the way things evolved, there are some inherent problem that happens, how the way people are using, or it kind of, the technology molds itself in a different direction. And then as a designer, you look at, okay, what is the problem this technology is causing? And you go through that cycle again. So that's why design is a continuous and collaborative process, correct? And these 2 words are very important. It is continuous, it is never ending, because the technology gets deployed, somebody uses it, there are problems, societies evolved, new problems come up, and then as a designer, you need to be cognizant of those problems and find solutions. So it's like a continuous process, and you cannot do it individually. You can conceptualize, but you need technology assistance to materialize that solution. You need business assistance to make that solution real, correct? And a design is only complete when it reaches people, right? If it is in my mind, if it is in my sketch, okay, fine. So I have a concept, but what next? Unless it reaches people, and that's where you need technology and business collaboration, right? Okay. So how much time do we have? Okay. So let's look at, one quick video, and let's look at some emerging trends in the field. So this video is from a site called Career Foundry. It's an edited version of that, but I thought it's important that you guys should watch it, because it is very nicely sums up where this field of user experience design is going, right? So let's watch this video.
My name is Maureen. I have been working as a product designer for the past 4 years. And in this video, I'll share the 5 key areas that I believe will have a big impact on our industry in the coming years. Before we start with the video, let me explain to you why I think it's important to focus on these 5 areas. One of the things that excite me the most about working in UX is that our industry is constantly changing and evolving. And apart from that, working as a UX designer also means that you're very close to emerging technologies that will change the way that people perceive and experience the world, and thus also change the way that we have to design solutions for these people. I want to introduce you to 5 topics that I think will have a big impact on our industry as well as the world in the next 5 to 10 years. So let's dive right in. One area that I see really developing in the coming years is extended reality. And with that, of course, I mean augmented reality and virtual reality. The impact of design right now already goes beyond the screen. Just think about, for example, the like button. That is just a feature in a product, but it already has a really big impact on our social lives. Or what do you think of Snapchat or Instagram filters that change someone's appearance so subtly that you almost don't see it? These are just small examples of how our reality is changing. But with new technologies like AR and VR, the impact will be even bigger. What I mean with extended reality are technologies like augmented reality or virtual reality. Augmented reality is a technology that adds digital components to our real-world reality. Whereas virtual reality completely immerses you in a different reality. So it's a completely different world that you'll find yourself in. With extended reality, I also mean technologies like holography, spatial and augmented audio, as well as the Internet of Things. So for example, holograms, smart fridges, or smart lighting, and with spatial and augmented audio, we mean immersive soundscapes. If these new technologies excite you, but also worry you or even scare you, then that is completely understandable. And that is one more reason to make sure that we stay up to date with these new technologies. First of all, extended reality will hugely impact the way that we design, because we won't only be designing for 2D screens like our desktop or laptop or mobile phone, like we're doing now, but we will also be designing 3D spaces where gesture, audio, and headsets play a role. On top of that, devices and thus experiences will be more linked with each other. The benefits of extended reality are easy to spot. You have a way more immersed experience when you're gaming. It's easier to meet your friends that live around the globe. Extended reality can also help professions like doctors and teachers perform their job better, especially in a remote environment. However, it's not just exciting to live in a sci-fi world. It also comes with some important questions that we have to ask ourselves. How will extended reality impact our environment? How will AR and VR impact our mental health? Will these technologies be accessible and inclusive? And what does it mean when big companies like Facebook work on these new technologies? What are their incentives? On to area number 2, which is kind of linked to extended reality. And I'm talking about AI, or artificial intelligence. AI, or artificial intelligence, is an umbrella term for all kinds of computer-generated intelligence. Today, we have what we call weak AI, even though this AI is far from weak. This kind of weak AI focuses on performing a specific task, for example, driverless cars or smartphone voice assistants. For example, Siri on an iPhone. In the future, we can expect AI to go up a level and reach what we call artificial general intelligence. Real examples of this don't really exist yet, but this kind of AI would equal human intelligence and would be able to have a self-aware consciousness that can solve problems, learn, and plan for the future. Lastly, artificial superintelligence would surpass the intelligence and ability of the human brain. But this doesn't exist yet. Examples of weak or narrow AI can already be found in our industry today as well. In our industry, we already use AI tools today, for example, to remove backgrounds from images or to enhance images, to generate color palettes that are based on our personal tastes, or to create portraits from fictional people for our personas. A field where AI can be of big help for us is user research and information architecture. For example, we can use AI to generate wireframes based on best practices from the web. Or we can use AI for user testing. So instead of having real people testing our designs, we can have an AI checking for any kind of usability problems. Tools that use AI for user testing already exist today. For example, a tool that uses heat maps or generates heat maps based on the designs that you feed it. For example, Zyro that generates heat maps based on the wireframes that you upload. This tool is a really good cost-saving way to get some of your ideas already tested before you test them with real users. One important thing to keep in mind is that computer intelligence or AI isn't neutral. It always has the biases of the people that develop this AI. AI is biased too and can definitely also discriminate. For example, there were multiple incidents of an AI that only recognized light-skinned people because it was only trained to recognize light-skinned people. As we'll be helping to support building AI and train AI, we have to be aware of our own biases. How can we make sure that we create an AI that is not discriminating other groups of people? Up next, I'll discuss Web 3.0 and the metaverse. Now that we talked about extended reality and artificial intelligence, we of course also need to talk about the metaverse. And this is something that you might have already heard because it was a big news item in 2021. Let's talk a little bit about the internet and where the internet is heading. When you think about how far the internet has come and developed in the past 30 to 40 years, it's quite staggering. When you think back to 1990, no one was online shopping, and now the majority of internet users has some kind of experience with it. The foundation of the internet was created by public institutions like governments and universities. And the reason was that they had the resources to set up a structure like that. The internet was built as a way to share information and to make books and other information available for the public electronically. Back in the day, only very few people created content that was consumed by the majority of internet users. Nowadays, of course, that's completely different. A lot of people generate content. So the internet has changed from a place where most people were passive users that would just read information or bulletin boards. And now we're at a place where everyone can create content, and a lot of people are not only passive readers, but also active content creators. So in a sense, the internet has become way more interactive. The internet, as we know it now, is at a tipping point. It is a communication tool, but it is no longer built by only public institutions like governments and universities. But still, the internet doesn't belong completely to the users because content creators are still dependent on big companies like YouTube or Facebook. But that will change with the coming of Web 3.0, as the internet will become a more decentralized place. So what do I mean with Web 3.0? That's pretty hard to say because there are many definitions and we're not completely in that new era of internet. An example of decentralization is the blockchain, which already exists today. So we are already experiencing the starts of Web 3.0. Now, what does this mean for UX designers? The important thing that we have to keep in mind is this decentralization part. Data will not be in the hands of big companies or public institutions anymore, but will be managed by us on the blockchain. And this could lead to a more secure and transparent environment. So how does all of this link back to artificial intelligence? Web 3.0 is the next stage of the internet that would make the internet even more intelligent, or process information with near human-like intelligence through the power of AI systems. AI systems could run smart programs to assist users. So now let's talk about something that brings all of this together that we discussed before, and that is the metaverse. The metaverse is an example that brings together virtual reality and a decentralized internet. Just like Web 3.0, there also isn't a universal definition of what the metaverse is. Some people describe the metaverse as a collection of 3D worlds, whereas others describe the metaverse as a collection of interconnected worlds that also link back to the real world as we know it today. Let's go with the definition of Facebook, or as they now are known, Meta. Meta describes the metaverse, a set of virtual spaces where you can meet and explore with other people that aren't in the same physical space as you are. And what is also important to mention here is that Facebook isn't the only company that is working on building a metaverse. You also have other companies like Epic or Roblox that are building their own metaverses in their own way. In the industry, we already use quite a lot of no-code tools, for example, Figma, Webflow, or Notion. With no code, I mean, and the name already says it, tools that don't require coding skills. And this also influences the skill set of the future UX designer. Maybe at some point, soft skills become more important than hard skills because we will have the tools that make the work easier for us. We work in a digital field that evolves very fast. Now, you don't have to become a metaverse expert or an AI programmer, but it is important that you understand the complications and implications of these new technologies. So how do you stay up to date? I hope that this video already gave you a bit of an introduction, but of course, now it's up to you. And I recommend that you connect with peers, that you follow news outlets like Wired or The Verge, or maybe even start watching the evening news with your parents. You might learn an interesting thing or two. My name is Maria.
Okay, so that was an interesting video. So which kind of captures all the discussing, whatever we are discussing, and gives you a sneak peek into what the future of the profession is, right? So with that, that's all the content I wanted to kind of cover for today. So with that, we come to an end of this workshop. One last thing. So one question would be in your mind is, okay, how do I acquire these skill set? How do I learn that, right? So MIT Institute of Design has a 4-year degree program in user experience design, where you will get to learn all the methodologies, acquire all the mindset and the skill set that you have, and which will help you prepare for the the future of the UX practice that we just talked about, and very exciting career in UX design. So in case if you have any queries, reach out to the admission cell of MIT. And I will encourage you to kind of be part of this program because it's a very interesting program. So with that, we come to the end of this workshop. So I think it was a very good experience for me conducting this workshop. I think you guys have a very real good audience. I enjoyed interacting with you, very responsive and interactive, and some really interesting ideas that you guys brought onto the table. So I'm sure you guys have enjoyed it the way to the extent that I have enjoyed it, right? And with that, if I thank you again, once again, and in case if you have any questions, I'll make the floor open for any questions or any feedback if you have. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Professor Shrikant Ekbote, sir, for the most interesting and inspiring session. Thank you to all the coordinators and the participants for joining us today. So lastly, I would request my technical team to please play the AV of MIT Institute of Design. Thank you.
I make the world graphical.
I add value through my products.
I am an animator.
I am a filmmaker. I develop trends.
I transform designs to reality.
I create environments.
I translate stories to furniture.
I design experiences.
I'm an immersive media designer.
I design mobility.
This is not only a design institute.
This is a design lab.
Join us in our design movement.